Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76, and together we are decoding the deception. Together today, we're back in the book of Revelation. This is an ongoing study, an ongoing series. I'm not trying to race through, just wanting to make sure and cover everything. And honestly, when I get done, when I finally complete the book of Revelation in this study, we'll go back and start looking at different aspects, different components of what is taught here again, because it is so vitally important, especially in our day and age. Now, in my study, there are two things that I have come to see that have really been eye-openers for me. And it's not as though I discovered them. It's just things that I came to understand as I was doing this lengthy study. I don't know how many times I have read the book of Revelation in its entirety and all the different parts as I have studied. But the two things that I have come to see revolve around things we'll talk about today. We're in Revelation 17 today, and those two things will be about the Rome that never died, the fascinating concept and so central to much of what Revelation teaches us about the events of the end time, the Rome that never died, and the identity of the Great Prostitute and what that represents, and the end of the Great Prostitute. Just fascinating things, just with those two characters, if you will, the Rome that never died and the Great Prostitute. Now, we did a video because it's a challenge to keep track of all of the players, if you will. It's a challenge to keep straight who is who. So we did a video, our latest video. The thumbnail for that video is right over here on the right. Get myself out of the way. It's over here on the right, and that is Revelation's Great Prostitute, identified by her characteristics. And as we went through that study, what we came to conclude was that the Great Prostitute, who has the name Mystery Babylon the Great on her forehead, the Great Prostitute represents the socio-political, economic, and cultural system in which we live. It encompasses all of those things and all of the greed and all of the avarice and all of the self-centered lust and the never-ending desire for more and more. That is what is represented by the Great Prostitute. The other things that we did as character studies, and what I'll do, I will take you here. This is our Revelation homepage, and this is, our web page, but here under Bible videos, we've got Revelation. We always have the latest video that we've done right here. This one will move down below, because we've got things about the numbers in Revelation, just resources for you. We can move down below here, and we have these Revelation cast of characters, part 1 and part 2. Those are about the different players, the beasts, the dragon, etc., and how we know who is who, and just keeping all of that straight. So these things are here for you as resources. And as I said, that video on the identity of the Great Prostitute of Revelation, it's going to be right down here along with these. Also have things here about some of the recurring concepts, earthquake, moon turned to darkness, and where all they appear, different places in the scriptures. We've put those here for you. So encourage you, come out here. This is a good place just to keep your bearings and awareness of who is who and what's going on in the book of Revelation. But we're going to jump in to chapter 17. Then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on the earth have become drunk." And he carried me away in the spirit. Actually, we're going to stop there with verse 2, and let's just look at this. It's one of the seven angels who comes to him and is clearly identified. It's this angel, one of those seven angels who had the seven bowls. Now, we've got the big four sets of seven in the book of Revelation. We've got the four seals. We've got there's four seals. We've got the seven seals. We've got the seven trumpets. We've got the seven visions, and we have the seven bowls. Now, there were also the seven thunders. And you will recall that with the seven thunders, and it's escaping me the exact reference of that now. I'll put it on the screen in editing. With the seven thunders, it was said, don't write that down. There are, and that's just a reminder to us that there are things that we are not privy to, things that God in his wisdom deigned not to tell us. And that's okay, because we know that we have all of the information that we need, and that is what is important. But the book of Revelation doesn't tell us everything about the end times. But one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls, those are the seven bowls, the seven plagues, God's wrath being poured out. And we've talked about how there is a building toward a climax as these different sets of seven came along, an intensification of the judgment, if you will. And the seven bowls, the seven plagues, are indeed judgment, final judgment. So it's one of those angels. It could have just been an angel. It could have been a mighty angel, as we're told in some places, but it's one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls. So this is connected with judgment. And just planting a seed, a reminder, judgment in the book of Revelation is always talked about as a twofold thing. What is damnation and judgment on the unbeliever is salvation for the believer, because one of these angels is going to come up in all places. Revelation 21 was the vision that when John is shown the new heaven and the new earth. Interesting concept. We'll come back to that. But this is definitely the judgment, damnation on unbelievers side of things. He said, "Come, and I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters." Here, judgment is most certainly the sentence being carried out. And you think of it the way we use the word judgment. Judgment can be judgment being rendered, judgment being worked out and contemplated, the decision, making judgment, etc. But judgment can also be the meting out of punishment. And that is what we have here. This is the judgment of the great prostitute. And just stop and think for a moment. If the great prostitute represents the secular, political, socio-economic, and cultural system in which we live, and she is judged, and her end in these two chapters is going to be laid out for us, what does that tell us about our relationship with all the things of this world, those things that perhaps we long for, those things that perhaps we desire and want? What does it tell us about that? Doesn't it give us pause to stop and think about the way we look at the world? Just as a prostitute is a seductive, deceptive temptrix. So Stop and think about how we look at the world. This is the judgment of the great prostitute. And here, the fact that it's great doesn't mean wonderful, awesome. It's huge. This system permeates the whole world. And she is, as it is said, she's seated on many waters. Later, we're going to be told in this same chapter that those many waters represent all the different peoples, the unbelieving peoples of this world. She is everywhere. And you may think, well, if it's about lust and avarice and the endless pursuit and chasing after more and more and more, whether that be money, cars, houses, sex, pleasure, thrills, whatever it might be, and that is what she represents, and she is what dominates our world, then these things are really first world problems. This is a first world issue. Well, if you've lived or spent time in the third world, and I was blessed to do so as a missionary long ago, what you understand then is that the people in the third world may not have the level of material comfort that you have, but they still desire the same things, and certainly the same carnal temptations afflict them as they do us. So this great prostitute, she is everywhere. She is seated upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality. Who are the kings of the earth? Now, in this day and age, because this was written to a specific audience, the seven churches that John addresses, that Jesus addresses letters to in the first chapters of this book, their world was different than ours. Their idea, what came to mind with king, is different than ours. We think presidents and chancellors and the like, but the kings of the earth, especially today, are much more than that. Those who rule this world are not the ones who hold office. Those who hold office work for those who rule this world. The people who hold the power, the people who have the money and the control, stay out of the limelight. Even those that we might think of, and rightly so, as being the equivalent of kings in the world: Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Bezos, Warren Buffett, and the like. They are but bit players in the grand scheme of things. Those who really have power, those who really hold sway, rarely venture out into the light. They are, in more ways than one, creatures of darkness, and they are the priests, the go-betweens between this world and its dark lord, Satan, who we are told again and again is indeed the ruler of this world. But those kings, those who are in power, have done what? They have committed sexual immorality, and with the great prostitute. Sexual immorality, worshiping false gods in the prophets in the Old Testament, is defined, discussed by God himself in terms of sexual immorality. They worshiped false gods. They whored after them. It is stated repeatedly and repeatedly, the children of Judah, the children of Israel, whored after those false gods. And it was in that paradigm that God discussed that. So they commit sexual immorality, and they certainly do that in the terms we generally think of sexual immorality. That is rampant. It is rife in our world. But this also discusses, it brings to mind their worshiping, whoring after the false god of this world, because he holds sway, but he is not God Almighty. He is not the one whom we ought worship, but that is the one they serve. And just as in the Old Testament, just as with the children of Judah in the time of the prophets, as they worship those false gods, there was all kinds of sexual perversion and immorality that went along with it. And look at our world. And I'll just use one example. We can't bring it up too frequently because it is so important. Look at the use of children for sexual pleasure, the degree to which that permeates our society, and that nothing happens about it. Everyone knows what's going on. There is no justice, certainly not for those poor children. Why? Why? Because those who hold power are part of it. They are the ones in the lead about that. And the abuse of children has always been part of Satan's realm and how he operates. Again, the Old Testament is full of examples of that. And the history of the world, no matter where you look, no matter where you go, full of examples about that. And going on, with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers of the earth have become drunk. I see so many different things online, people stating this important truth in different ways. For those who are awake, especially those who are awake, and you can really truly only be awake if you're a believer. If you're not a believer, if you do not understand that this world was created by, spoken into existence by the Lord, Yahweh, God Almighty, God Most High, then how awake can you be? So, for those of us who are believers and we look at what's going on in this world, whether it's COVID or this bogus nonsense wag the dog war over in Ukraine, or the manipulation of financial markets and interest rates for the sake of bringing about pain and misery and destruction, and we just say it seems that everyone is in a stupor, like a drunken stupor. And if you were to go back in time and go onto the college campus late on Saturday night, you would find that there's not a lot of anxiety, not a lot of stress. Everybody's fine with whatever's going on. Why? Because they're all hammered and 3 sheets to the wind, as the saying used to go. They're not concerned about what awaits them the next morning or the term paper that's still due once they get past the hangover. They are in a drunken stupor. And doesn't that sound like what we read here? With whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and the wine of whose sexual immorality, all the nonsense, all the perversion, all the stupidity that they put out through 1,000 different channels in so many different ways, with the wine of whose sexual immorality, included with that the ever never-ending desire for more and more and more money, more success, more emptiness. The dwellers on earth have become drunk. They are indeed in a drunken stupor. And to whatever degree we stay within that system, to whatever degree we allow it to have airtime in our heads, and if you know what it's about, then why would you allow it, this great prostitute, to have airtime in your head? And if we go to, we'll jump ahead, Revelation 18:4, then I heard another voice from heaven saying, and this is still about the great prostitute, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues, for her sins are heaped high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities." And we could go on at length. But the other revelation that I had, and I'm saying like revelation, but the thing I came to see, because it's right here in the book, the way it's talked about, and we'll get to it in a little bit, the great prostitute has to die. The great prostitute has to die. That is God's judgment, and that is going to happen before this world ends. We'll come back to that, put a pin in it. Now, we've only done 2 verses, but there was so much here. We're going to do this chapter in 2 parts. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a pause right here and going to get this video out. And then within a day or 2 after this one comes out, a couple days, then part 2 will come out. I like to keep these videos short. I think that is so important just for making it not such a challenge to find the time to watch all of it. I pray that what we do here, our humble efforts at decoding this deception, I pray that that is a blessing for you. I pray that God is using it to give you understanding, to build you up, to prepare you. That is what we are about. And I invite you, give us a thumbs up. It really does make a difference. And I invite you to pray for us. Pray for this ministry. Pray that God would bless it and use it so that it is a blessing to others. I ask you to help us support this ministry financially. You can go right here at the top of the page to financial support. There's a link there, and that link also is in the description down below. Hey, if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel, and when you do, hit that notification bell so you're made aware when we put out a new video. Share this video. Send it off to someone else. Put it out on your social media feed, and I know you're doing that because I see the results on our website, people coming and checking us out. And finally, do drop by our website. Check out all the resources we have for you here. A whole lot of good stuff. Just check out the menu there across the top. All kinds of things here under these different headings. You can even click on Contact Us and shoot us a message if you like and communicate that way. Do love to hear from you. You can send questions that way as well. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception. God bless and have a great day.